What happens when truth itself becomes unmoored, when the foundational message of Christianity, anchored for centuries in scripture and doctrine, is loosened by progressive reform? In every generation, the battle over truth has had consequences far beyond the confines of religious debate. It has shaped civilizations, cultures, and the inner lives of millions. Today, as currents of progressive Christianity reinterpret what once seemed unchangeable, the very bedrock of the faith is questioned. Doctrine, liturgy, and moral teaching, once held as immovable, are recast to fit the demands of inclusion, justice, and evolving cultural norms. The process is not gentle. Each attempt to compromise, adjust, or adapt brings Christianity closer to a critical juncture. Can a faith so rooted in absolute foundations survive the movement to make them flexible? Philosophers of religion have long asked what it means for any tradition to hold fast to truth. Is religious truth eternal, inscribed in the nature of God and reality? Or is it, like so much else, subject to history and revision, shaped by collective experience, trauma, and hope? Christianity has, traditionally, grounded itself in the notion of timeless truth, the Word revealed, the Trinity affirmed, salvation offered through Christ alone. Progressive reform, however, reframes sin not as rebellion but as incompleteness, salvation not as rescue but as universal embrace, and moral order not as fixed but as oppressive when untethered from empathy and change. This progressive process, for many, signals more than mere adaptation. It represents the dissolution of what set Christianity apart, a collapse, not just of doctrine and tradition, but of identity itself. When the anchor stones are questioned and moved, the entire edifice no longer holds. The faith cannot be both grounded and unmoored, cannot rest on revelation and on changing consensus together. But is collapse merely loss? Or can the unraveling of institutional Christianity reveal something essential about humanity's deepest search for meaning? History bears witness. The ancient Israelites, when they loosened the strictures of their covenant, found themselves lost in cycles of chaos and renewal. Rome's adoption and transformation of faith mirrored its own rise and decline. The Enlightenment fractured confidence in religious absolutes, giving way to new freedoms and new uncertainties. Mainline Protestantism in the last century saw decline as it softened core teachings, but at the same time, new expressions of faith and justice flourished among its adherents. The pattern is clear. Every time the cornerstones are shifted for the sake of progress, the old form of Christianity begins to fray, and the community splinters. Some cling desperately to tradition, others embrace change, and many find themselves searching for belonging on the far edge of both. The process is rarely smooth. Cracks appear, old arguments revive, and eventually the facade of unity gives way to a more honest plurality. Yet in this collapse, there may be benefit, not a tragedy but an unveiling. The fall of uncompromising systems clears away the debris of dogmatism, allowing fresh thinking and authentic engagement to emerge. It is in the breakdown that humanity is forced to reconsider what is worth preserving, which convictions are worth defending. What practices most truly promote justice, compassion, and wisdom? Philosophical scrutiny suggests that when faith is exposed to the pressures of reform, what remains is not the brittle shell of cultural Christianity, but the seed of transformation. The collapse strips away pretense, freeing individuals and communities to pursue truth in conversation with the world as it is, not merely as it was. Consider the cathedral once more. For centuries, its cornerstone held firm, rituals, teachings, and moral codes remained intact. Yet when reformers and renovators arrive, eager to let in light and create new space, the structure must face its vulnerabilities. If change is superficial, cracks deepen invisibly. If change is foundational, collapse is inevitable. But in the ruins, the stones that truly bore weight are revealed, making possible the design of new forms, adapted for new ages. Progressive reinterpretation is not a gentle renovation, but a refiner's fire. It burns away excesses, unreflective power, and empty tradition. In its wake, much may be lost: certainty, stability, the comfort of old answers. But the space that opens can be filled with genuine dialogue, civic virtue, inclusive spirituality, and creative vision for human flourishing. Reformers and critics alike must ask, Is the goal to preserve Christianity at all costs, or to allow the collapse of forms that no longer serve truth and love? What might be recovered in the aftermath that dogmatism could never address? Dignity for the marginalized, honesty in belief, courage for justice, humility before mystery. Across the global scene, Christianity is transforming, shifting, declining, and rebirthing within Africa, Asia, Latin America, and beyond. In all these places, the question of truth remains central, but is increasingly negotiated through intercultural exchange, activism, dialogue, and new readings of Scripture. Collapse, in this sense, is less an ending and more a clearing for new growth. The theologian and the philosopher agree, the search for truth is relentless and fertile. When doctrinal walls fall, humanity does not abandon meaning, it seeks deeper sources. Mystical traditions, spiritual practices, and ethical commitments find room to breathe as the pressure to conform to inherited standards lessens. Is it possible that the collapse precipitated by progressive reform is, in fact, a gift, the end of illusions, giving rise to more honest faith, more sincere inquiry, and more just communities? Collapse disperses the crowd that gathers from habit and conformity, leaving behind those committed to discovery, dialogue, and creative renewal. The drama of reform and dissolution, of anchoring and unmooring, has always shaped the world's religions. To hold this tension is not to despair, but to see opportunity for newness, healing, and wisdom that comes only when old systems give way. As the final lines of tradition blur into the birth of new vision, the invitation remains. What will be built upon the foundation exposed by collapse? Which truths will remain indestructible, and which must be reimagined for a future defined by equity, reason, and grace? In this trial by progressive reform, Christianity loses much, but perhaps it gains what it most needed: freedom from the weight of convention, courage to face uncertainty, and the maturity to cherish only what endures through every change. The collapse, witnessed across history and culture, is not the end, but the necessary beginning of something deeper, a chance for faith and humanity to grow toward a more robust and inclusive future. Thank you for walking with me through these profound questions and uncertain landscapes, as we reflect on the tensions of reform, collapse, and renewal, not just in religious institutions, but also in our own hearts. I invite you to pause and consider, where do you see these patterns unfolding in your life? Have moments when tradition unraveled ever led you not to emptiness, but to deeper discovery? Philosophy teaches that every crack in our foundations is also a window, an invitation to re-examine what truly matters and to build anew with greater honesty and hope. Let's be brave enough to ask ourselves, what beliefs deserve to be cherished and which, perhaps, should be lovingly let go? In facing these shifts, we aren't alone. This community, made up of seekers, doubters, reformers, and traditionalists alike, is where these conversations find real depth and humanity. Your perspective matters. Share your experiences, your uncertainties, and your insights in the comments below. Have you found wisdom in collapse? Strength in questioning, renewal in the ashes of what you once thought unchangeable. Let's learn from one another, because the wisdom that endures and transforms is born not just from answers, but from shared dialogue, vulnerability, and reflection. If this journey resonates with you, subscribe and stay connected. Together, we can become architects of new meaning, curators of rich tradition, and companions in the pursuit of truth that grows stronger with every storm we endure. Let's keep this conversation alive, as fellow travelers seeking wisdom, courage, and hope on the path ahead.